Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to look at Romans chapter 11, verses 33 down through 36. We're going to talk about stuff you don't know, or more specifically, stuff that even if you try to learn it, you still don't know it. For me, when I was in high school, I had to take chemistry. I didn't learn a thing, nothing. Now, I was a good student. I got mostly A's, but that class, chemistry, I passed it. I'm not sure how. They would talk about things, and it's like you might as well be speaking French. I have no idea whatsoever what you're talking about. This is how I feel whenever you see one of those like math questions. If a train leaves Pittsburgh at 11:30, traveling 80 miles an hour, and another train leaves Philadelphia, I'm lost. I don't know. I don't even know how to start figuring it out. My brain has no access to that kind of information or that kind of how it's all put together. In the section we're going to look at, Paul recites some passages from the old prophets, and he makes this passage an ode to the unknowable wisdom of God. Well, that's all very nice, but it really is just a poem that he's quoting. However, Paul is saying something more important here. He's saying that he's saying something people have wondered about since we first started seeking and first started following God. Here it is. He's saying that knowing God is absolutely beyond our comprehension. His ways are mysterious and unknowable. We may not exactly understand what is so mysterious about God. Do we understand why God is mysterious and what is knowable about him? It probably isn't what we think it is. So, what about God is mysterious? What about God is unknowable? Why can't we know it? Paul seems to think that it's God's will that's unknowable. But is it really? Paul quotes Isaiah here to remind us that God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. That means we can't even begin to imagine how God thinks or what his will is. Look at verse 33. Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments, his paths beyond tracing out. So apparently it's impossible to understand God's will. We have no way of even beginning to comprehend or question his will because it's too far above us. It's like a preschooler trying to decipher quantum physics. It's not going to happen. In fact, that Greek word there for tracing out, let me see if I can pronounce this in the Greek. I'm not going to even bother trying. The word means undetectable. Paul is saying that there's no way for people to even begin to be able to detect, that is, to find out or even understand God's will. The plans and ways and knowledge of God are beyond our comprehension. We can't even find a way to begin to even find his will. Okay, so obviously God's mind is beyond our understanding. Okay, I get that. But is God's will beyond our understanding too? Because we sort of need to know what God's will is if we're going to serve him, right? Can we know God's will at all? Actually, yeah. And we need to know his will. We really do need to understand this and to know it because if there's let's try this again. Because if there isn't a way to know what his will is, then how are we supposed to know what God wants from us? Let's say you're a waiter in a restaurant, all right? And in this restaurant, one day, Albert Einstein walks in and sits at your table. Now, the first thing you're going to say to Albert Einstein is, I thought you were dead. Okay, but beyond that, you are not going to understand the theory of relativity. You're not going to understand how this man's mind thought. But would you be able to understand his order, what he wants for lunch? Yes, you would. You better understand what he wants for lunch. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to bring him his lunch. Seems pretty simple, huh? Okay, we may not be able to understand the mind of God, but we should be able to understand his will. Otherwise, there's no way that we can possibly serve him. So, surely what Paul meant here was God's will is hard to figure out, and you really have to work at it, but it can be done. And you should be trying to do that. Okay, now that we can live with. Maybe God's will is like quantum physics and that we really have to study and learn it and develop it. So the real question is, how are we supposed to start studying and learning and deciphering God's will? How do we do that? Tune in next time and you'll find out. Until then, have a great day.